right. We got a great podcast today. We're here with Coach Stokowski out of Grayson High School. He's Director of Sports Science. He's also special teams coordinator for the football team there at Grayson and head track and field coach. So we're really excited to talk to him. He wears a lot of hats, apparently, which is good. That means it makes him very, very valuable. So that's a good thing. And we're excited to talk to him about not just football, but development of athletes and how he goes about doing it. Grayson High School is one of the powerhouse football programs in all of Georgia and perennially ranked, depending on the year, in the top 25 in the country. So great football program. Lots of fantastic athletes come through, great coaches, got a great commitment to athletics there. So it's really exciting to talk to Coach, from a place like that where they're really committed to helping the athletes succeed. So it's great to have you on, Coach.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
No problem. As always, I'm here, Coach Schumann, and I have Coach D with me as always. And we're going to dive right into it. Coach, if you can go into kind of your background, maybe as an athlete, definitely obviously as a coach, and how you got that point to this point in your career and kind of the evolution of it.
Sure. Well, I guess the basic road of my coaching career isn't super interesting. Wasn't a very good athlete myself. To help pay for community college, I got my officiating license. So I did that for my first 3 years out of high school, which I think gave me a really unique perspective. One that not a lot of people, you don't. A lot of people have opinions on it, but never actually put the stripes on and see what it's like from the other side. And then I had a big blessing in my life. I'm going to get my teaching certification and degree at Illinois State University. And a guy who I worked with at the YMCA in Peoria, Illinois, ends up getting hired on the staff at Illinois State. And so he brings me on, and I essentially get to work in the football office for 40 hours a week for no pay. And it was a crash course. It was like the best thing that ever happened to me. And then the following year, this is crazy to say, but the teaching job market was kind of wacky back then. Couldn't find a teaching position. And so they actually created a position with another man in mind. He ended up taking a GA job at New Mexico. And then they're like, well, who should we hire? And they're like, well, this kid, he did a really good job doing a bunch of stuff that you guys never knew about last year, tucked away in a corner office typing in data, but he'd be the right guy for the job. So I was able to do that another year at Illinois State. That would have been in 2012. Realized I wasn't going to be able to make ends meet that way. So I had to go get a job with, I want to say a real job, but a job that has a real salary. And so I work at Farmington Central High School, which is west of Peoria, Illinois, for 3 years. And then when I'm 26 years old, I get hired as the head coach at Villa Grove Heritage, which is I don't know how it is in New Jersey, but in Illinois, they have like co-ops for football. So essentially the school I'm at so small, the school down the road so small, we need to come together so we can play 11 man. And so I did that for 2 years. Really wanted to just kind of a pipe dream of coming down to the Southeastern United States and coaching ball, and ended up finding a job through Football Scoop at Pepperell High School, which is in Northwest Georgia. Really good small school program. And when I say small school, in Georgia, Georgia's a little bit different than Illinois. Illinois has a lot of schools that are like tiny, like 200, 300 students, where Georgia has more county school systems. So there are small schools, but the number of small schools is much smaller. So like a small school in Georgia may be one that has somewhere from like 700 to 900 students. So I'm there for 3 years, and I should probably say like the thing that kind of my niche in the whole thing ended up being like analytics and speed. Oh, we good?
Yeah, you cut out for a little bit, but go, I'm sorry. Go ahead again.
We good? Okay. No, the whole thing kind of refreshed for a second. I'm not sure what that was. but no, I kind of got I got hooked up with the Tony Holler Feed the Cats. Now it's really being sold as like sprint based football. And some of those ideas and concepts, I kind of took them and ran with them. Got really interested in speed profiling for athletes. So essentially, a kid runs a 40-yard dash. What are they good at? What are they not good at? How can we address those needs? And so I just went maybe deeper down some rabbit holes than anybody had ever gone before. And that turned into a lot of opportunities for me in terms of speaking opportunities. Got to write for Simply Faster. So that was a big passion project of mine. So yeah, when I came to Georgia, I was there 18, 19, 20, went to Jackson High School, which is in middle Georgia, south of Atlanta. Was there for 2 years. We had a coaching change, and then Santavius Bryant gets hired as the head coach at Grayson High School, and he calls me up and essentially wants me to come there and do what I had been doing with athletes, but on a much, much larger scale in terms of the quantity and the quality of athletes that we deal with at Grayson. So no, I've been here now for this is the 3rd season.
Very, very cool. That's interesting that you went from Illinois, moved over to Georgia. What was the impetus for you wanting to kind of leave Illinois and going to Georgia to coach and do your career there?
Yeah, I don't like cold weather. And I've told this story many times, but I got rear-ended in an ice storm by a semi-truck driving to school one day. So I was just like, if I can do this, and then the more research I did about Georgia, there's so many things about the state of Georgia when it comes to coaches that, like obviously you'll see the graphics that get put out, like,
oh yeah,
Coach King over at Carrollton makes $200,000. Like, yeah, that's great for sure. And there's a trickle down effect from that. But the other thing is, like, Georgia does a very, very good job, in my opinion. The teacher pay is fair, and they have a state-based pay scale, and they have state-based health insurance. And there were some things that in Illinois it was more of a every district for themselves, free for all. And in Georgia's is much more structured, and I'm going to talk about something really boring that no one wants to hear about on your podcast. But like in Georgia, if you move schools, you're still under the same healthcare plan. So it's just, you just got to make sure that somebody flips that switch and now you work for this district and not that district. But it's just smooth operations like that.
Oh yeah.
Me being a young
Plays
person,
a huge role.
There's just, I can't imagine ever leaving Georgia, just with how things are set up down here.
No doubt. That's interesting.
Makes a lot of sense now, Coach. Makes a lot of sense now. It makes a lot of sense now. Coming from someone who was in education in Jersey and has seen that it is, like, it makes a lot of sense as to why you see a lot of people go to Georgia to do kind of what you guys do.
For sure.
There's no doubt about it. It's interesting that how Georgia's really emerged as a place that's really doing amazing things in sports. I mean, I look at football and the growth of the number of just Division I prospects in the last 15 years. It's unbelievable. The growth from that standpoint, where they have become, they're on par with California, as far as, and in a much, 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 much smaller state, obviously, than California, as far as Division I athletes, and just the commitment to athletics there is fantastic. Grayson.
Now, Coach, I will say with that, it's interesting that you say that. I'm a data nerd, so one thing when you look at Georgia's population has doubled since 1980, and then obviously when the Olympics came in 1996, you had a huge influx of people. So just to give you an example, like where Grayson's at, we're on the far, far east side of Gwinnett County. And Gwinnett County is, whenever you see election night and they talk about the swing counties in Georgia, that's Gwinnett where I live.
Right.
And so there used to be, think of it like a rural area that existed between Atlanta and Athens, where UGA is located. Mm-hmm. And now what's happened, you've had, let's just call it white flight. So what's funny is Grayson's been really good at football for a long time. But if you look up at the banners for the state championship games, when they won the title in 2011, it's almost all white people. And then you look at the banner from last year's state championship, and we have more white coaches than we have white players. So what has happened is you've had people move out and essentially schools that used to be small rural schools are now kind of growing into, let's call it like 1,500 to 2,000 student schools. And you have places like Grayson that have gone from 2,500 to this year when they do our count, we're expecting to be somewhere in the 37 to 3,800 range. So when you just talk about
kids in high school, wow.
Yeah. So we have
the second university.
Largest. Yeah. So we have the second largest high school in Georgia in terms of enrollment. Brookwood, which is down the road from us, they're going to probably beat us by about 50 to 100 students this year. So like everybody, I think everybody kind of thinks things just happen when in reality, a big part of the growth of Georgia has been the literal growth in terms of population of the area. And that's just, that's, more people, more money, more opportunity. And
right.
Truly, I think that's the same driver that you've seen the Southeastern Conference just emerge as this power conference, right? There's just so many more people now that live in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina,
Tennessee,
Alabama,
Northern Alabama has grown. Like, I think it's Huntsville. Is that Northern, yep. Which is like a boom. So like, even that's a great point. Well, at the height of when I was running camps, we ran them all over the country, over 100 around the country, and we ran them in every state in the Southeast too. And what was interesting was over the years from like 2007 to 2017, it started out at one point those camps had like there wasn't really that many camps, but we had good numbers there and good athletes, but over the years it kept getting more and more and more and better and better. And then obviously everybody runs something nowadays out there, so there's a million programs being run, and that was I just happened to be there running these things at like as it was starting to really boom, take off. And it's interesting because you're right. The pockets of population now, obviously, it's still not on par population wise with Texas, Florida, or California, but the migration, not just of because of opportunity, but a lot of people who would tend to have like athletic families, right? Like looking for better jobs, families that are coming in, and then those new areas expanding, which is a lot of what happened. So like in Georgia, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but like that Northeast section on the way to Athens, you got like, I remember schools like I think it's Cherokee was like a small, like not a big high school. Now they're a huge high school. And I have friends that, live down there, and even north above that, like there used to be nothing there. There used to be like literally nothing, and now they're like if you're driving north of there, you're like, oh, is there going to be even like a Chick-fil-A around there? And then now it's like boom towns, Yeah. Buford, right, is obviously like became a boom town. So it's all those kind of areas. And I know like I don't know if you guys still are, but Grace and Buford like used to have like used to battle with each other. I
will tell you that's kind of a funny thing that you say, because like that is somewhat true from like a cultural standpoint,
right?
But what's been interesting is like Grayson has always been, other than the first couple of years the school existed, it's always been considered like a large school. It's always been a large classification. Where Buford has grown from, they won. Right. They've grown, and they've grown massively. And now you get to this point now where it was funny. We actually played Buford in the playoffs 2 years ago. And it was the first time, you'd cross paths with people. You'd play them in underclass games. You would, go to track meets, see them in other sports, but they had never played in football. Some of that was because they weren't in the same classification. But I would say that was one of the most fun football games I've ever been a part of. It was standing room only. And so you've kind of seen some of these towns that were not considered in the largest classification. They have boomed as well. You look at places, Gainesville's in the second to largest classification. Carrollton is now in the largest classification.
Right. That's where Juju Lewis went, right? I think.
Correct. Yeah, that's we played them last year in the state championship.
And the other thing too is you see a lot of like with the growth of social media, right, and the access now granted to, open eyes for people to see other things in other states and outside of it, right? And Georgia's kind of been on the forefront of that, whether it be, posts about coaching salaries or, hell, every time I opened up a social media account, it was, Buford's new stadium, right? Or whatever, like just stuff like that.
Even
honestly,
even South Georgia has boomed like the Valdosta area. Well, I can't think of the counties.
I think some of the notoriety too, like from some of the reality TV shows, right, that have put Georgia kind of, following this coach or doing this or doing that, and then just seeing Georgia teams like in the top 25 in the country when it comes to it has really kind of escalated them into a top 5, like hands down top 5 football state in the country. And I think that's, also a piece of it, right? Like, I mean, look, before the show, we were talking about
considered number 3, I would say. It's probably,
I'm super interested, like in my position with, like perception and, the macro, the zoomed out, like how do we level up nationally and things like that. And one thing,
it's out there.
I'm not saying like we're in a good spot, but what I looked at was the High School Football America top 300, right? And I went back,
right,
like because they've been doing it now for like 12 years, and like right now on any given week there are somewhere between like 28 to 30 schools from Georgia in that top 300, where
awesome.
even a decade ago that number was like 10.
Very true.
So like it's a quality and a quantity thing. That's you're seeing growth in the state, and it's a really fun thing to be a part of because you get to see it happen in real time.
No, it's cool. Like even
you're on boots on the ground.
County and Colquitt County are like, though Camden County used to be because they're on that Florida Georgia line, used to be a place that like they'd roll down in that area and then they couldn't compete, but now they can compete. Colquitt County obviously invested a lot of money. And now they're among the best. It's very interesting how that's happened so well in Georgia. It's obviously it helps, and then obviously it helps having so many Division I programs. I think is a big thing for a state. At the time was it's not a small state, but like as far as like population wise relative to Florida or Texas, for as many good players as you have so many.
I have a hot take when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I think Georgia is still being under recruited.
Interesting.
And here's my perspective.
You mean by outside? Like outside? I'll let you get into it, but
okay. So yes,
like other schools. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So you talk about like high level prospects. You talk about 5-star, 4-star kids. They're gonna get recruited no matter what. They could be in Alaska. They're gonna get recruited. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking more about the next tier down, because one of the things that's happened is all the schools that used to be in the FCS level have gone up. So you've had Georgia Southern, you've had Kennesaw State, and then in the state itself, the only FCS school left, Savannah State dropped down to Division II. There's a lot of Division II HBCUs, but the only FCS school left is I should say there's 2 now. Georgia or West Georgia has emerged from Division II to FCS, but is West Georgia and Mercer. And then what you have surrounding the state are schools that have always recruited Georgia, but a lot of them are the remnants of the old SoCon, but most of them are private schools that have higher academic standards.
Right.
When you talk about Samford, I'm just like Samford,
Furman,
Furman.
Yep.
And so when you kind of take that all into account, I still think there's a level of like 1B prospects that are still under recruited, and you're starting to see that now because the HBCUs in our state, the Division II schools, they're thriving. Clark Atlanta, that struggled for a long time, is pretty dang good. You've got, obviously Valdosta State's always been very good, but you've got Fort Valley State, who's very good, and you can't tell me that a kid who can thrive as an underclassman at a high level of Division II wouldn't also be a pretty dang good player You know, when the bottom, or even so, I think FCS is so interesting to talk about now because in reality, you know, when I was young, when I was a kid, there was 117 teams in the highest class or the highest division, right? Now there's what, 140, and I mean, I don't know if y'all watched the game last night on ESPN, but like that looked like FCS football to me.
Right.
The old FCS. You know, those teams that were on my screen last night, they would not have beaten Georgia Southern and Appalachian State of 15 years ago. So you've gotten local places that have maybe gone more national because the perception of being FBS.
Right.
And so I have different coaching contacts, different places, and like outpost places, like places that don't have a recruiting base in their state. And you kind of got, okay, so like I can get on a flight from wherever I'm at and I can get to Atlanta. To me, like I think there's maybe more fruitfulness in the state of Georgia than there is in Florida because the talent is so concentrated in Georgia. Most of it, yes, South Georgia is incredibly talented, but there's so much talent right in the metro area of Atlanta. I think you're going to start seeing in the same way that, you know, when I was at Illinois State, the teams that you would recruit against, they would decide which warm weather state would be the base of their recruiting. Am I going to be a Texas school? Am I going to be a Florida school? And then once you got further out west, am I going to be a California school? And I think you may start seeing teams say, we're going to be a Georgia school. Like we're going to put resources there. I heard, was it Barry Alvarez a long time ago? He said something like, if I get my skill kids from Wisconsin and my linemen from Florida, I'm out of a job. But if I get my linemen from Wisconsin and my skill kids from Florida, we're going to the Rose Bowl. I just thought that was funny. But what I'm saying is that I think schools like that, they're going to start trying to get more into Georgia and less fruitful maybe in some other places that are like, I always think perception is always 10 years behind reality. And I think that's something that's about to take hold in the recruiting game down here.
Yeah, well, you do see like you know, the outside of the SEC, schools pulling more and more players from the South, right? Especially with the transfer portal. And I think in the long run, but I agree with you. I have a friend who runs a big lineman thing down in Georgia, and that's all he talks about, how it's under recruited. And one of the guys we work with has a show, and he like features these players, and most of them are from Georgia, these linemen. And if they were like in our state, they would be getting Division I offers. A lot of them had nothing at the time or like lower level. So, and these guys were really good. And so I agree with you. I think it's been such a plethora. Like there's been such growth Division I wise. Like Gwinnett County, for example, is been insane from that standpoint, that it hasn't caught up yet with how many players there actually really are at all levels there. And the recruiting hasn't caught up with it, and coaches have not really been able to grasp how many players there really are at all levels there. And because you don't have like you have Division II, but you don't have like Division IIIs or all those kind of things, they have to go a lot of kids who could go play somewhere in college, maybe not Division I, but they go play somewhere that it's a harder haul for them to find a spot outside of the Division I level. And I think that, you know, over time people will recruit more and more in there, just like they did with Texas you know, and that's obviously been the way in Texas for a long time. But as Texas like has expanded, like Georgia has expanded north, really, like a large part of the boom. Georgia, Dallas, the Dallas area in particular, expanded on that north way up, and then the south portion below Dallas or above Dallas, right? And they continued to expand out, and that's how you got like Duncanville, which was okay, now is national top 10. DeSoto, Joey McGuire from Texas Tech came from Cedar Hill. You know, it's like they're right next to it's boom, boom, boom. You know, I'm just like it is in Georgia, right? And then you go north and you go Plano, all the Planos and all the Mesquites, and then you got all the you go to Frisco, and you go to Allen, and you just they keep adding they keep adding towns up the Northway, right? And as they keep doing it, they just keep expanding more and more families in that area, and there's more. So it just doesn't end. And I think you're right about that. 10 years from now, people are like, oh, well, they just keep expanding them. They just keep moving. More talent goes up north more and more and more, and then way, way, way south in Georgia, like where you go all the way down towards the Florida line, right? So those areas are rapidly expanding, and I'm sure other areas probably are in different parts. Maybe over time, as people keep migrating, they say, oh, maybe I'd like to live near Savannah. I don't know. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. And you start to get more and more of those pockets. And it's happened in Alabama and Nashville. Like Nashville, I remember in 2006, like it was okay player wise. I mean, now those suburban areas and have so many players, and northern Alabama, like I remember we used to have Jason, who played at Tennessee. Jason Swain was from northern Alabama, and like it used to say, it was very hard to get recruited from northern Alabama, even though there was like really good players there, but it was hard to get recruited because it wasn't that big. And now that's a boom area. Huntsville, that's like those areas are boom areas. Like they're people are putting different things in there, and so it's really, really. But Georgia has done that on a scale level that reminds me of Texas. It reminds me of what happened on the Northway, and then south of Dallas, and how that expanded, and then just exploded in the level of players that are there, and facilities, and all the things that come associated with it, which is really, really interesting. And the migration, like people from the north have from the northeast where we're from, and other parts, and maybe the northern in the Midwest, or in Illinois or Ohio, have moved down south too, right? Like that's it's migration within the South, and then migration from north to south is also a big boom. Just because, hey, if your house, you get X for $1 million in New Jersey, for $1 million in certain places in Georgia, you're going to be living on an estate. You know what I mean? I mean, here in New Jersey now, houses that were $500,000 are now $1 million. You know what I mean? So people take their money. They bought a regular house, and they're like, oh my God, now my house is worth double because there's no, it's not that great of a house. It's just worth double. You know what I mean? And let's go take this money and get an estate, So, and those things happen. And I think that all, like, it's probably, opportunities and jobs and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. Like, I think it's cool how those things happen over time in the United States. And, you look at it where things have moved around and stuff throughout history. And it's really, really interesting. I do want to talk about, because you are were a Feed the Cats guy. I don't know if you still are a Cats guy, but you're a Feed the Cats guy, and that was part of your kind of development within sports and speed and strength conditioning. I'd love for you to talk about the performance side of what you're doing with your athletes, especially, obviously, you're a track and field coach too. What are some of the things that you're putting a big emphasis on from a performance side with your athletes?
Yeah. I guess that's a big piece of pie to kind of slice up.
Yeah, we'll dive into it. You give us a little bit here. We'll dive into more of it.
So from a football side of things, my role is, we joked about my actual title earlier, but it's very specific. Like, that's my title because we have a gentleman who is our strength and conditioning coordinator. His name is Aaron Hill. He is phenomenal. He is not super online, but he's one of the best I've ever been around. So he handles that side of things at a super, super, super high level. Really, where I come in is I'm evaluating and compiling information about our athletes. We've got around 200, and it floats between about 210 and 225 kids in our program at any given time. And so really where my role comes in is, one is the kid can see their own development. right? I was this, now I'm this. I used to be this fast, now I'm this fast. There's also me communicating that to our head coach and to the other coaches. We're seeing growth with this kid. We're not seeing growth with this kid. What we should emphasize, what we should really look at. Then there's also the concept of what have I compiled that can help us schematically. So if we're better in one area, like are we collectively better as a fast team or collectively better as a strong team? And can we put the right people on the field? I'm not the one calling the plays. I'm not the one determining those things, but the information that I can provide to my coaches, I hope they view as incredibly valuable and allows them to make more informed decisions about what we're doing. The other thing, and I've talked to my head coach about this a lot, we're on the back half of our varsity season, but our underclass season finished up about, I think, a week or two ago. And just that me communicating better with our underclass coaches about, hey, like these two kids, they may be even, but this kid's has a much larger growth potential. One of the metrics that we look at, you're going to laugh at this. It's going to sound silly, but I really believe in this. So we look at foot size plus wingspan, but the wingspan number is divided by 4. So I'm going to make that really simple. So if I were a size 15 shoe and I have an 80-inch wingspan, my number is 35. So when we have kids that have 35 or like, obviously that's a rarity, right? 80-inch wingspan, size 15 shoe. That's a massive kid. If we get one of those kids and they're like, let's say 5'11", 6 foot in 9th grade, all of those kids that have registered there, we've had 9 of them register there. All of them have grown 2 or more inches over the next 24 months from the time that we got that metric. And so,
and coach, it was foot size plus wingspan times 4.
Sorry. So foot size as its own metric, right?
Got it.
Size 15 shoes, size 4. And then wingspan in inches divided by 4.
Got
it. Got it. Okay.
So they're like, if a kid gets like 31, 32, that's about average for the kids who start for us, right? And then anybody who can get like 35, awesome. Like we have a kid right now who's like 36 and he just turned 16. He plays tight end for us. He's like 6'5", 245 pounds. He's starting to catch balls. He runs good routes. His recruitment is just going to absolutely explode. Yeah.
Here it comes. Like, get ready, buddy. I hope you're ready for the onslaught.
So when the colleges start rolling in this offseason, you can just kind of see it coming. But I, as a special teams coordinator, I try to use those things. I try to like kind of moneyball it and try to see like who has really good metrics that maybe we are not utilizing. And I don't want to say underutilized, because the truth is that you may be a Division I prospect. You just happen to be behind our Mike linebacker, who's a 5-star going to Texas, right? It's like just because the guy in front of you is better than you doesn't mean that you're not also a very, very good player.
Right.
So just being able to utilize that roster and use it to our benefit. Now we talked earlier about Carrollton and Buford. The coaches there do a phenomenal job, like elite level job. The difference between us and them is there's a thing in Georgia where every kid that doesn't live in your zoned school district counts as 3 kids. So Buford and Carrollton are in the largest classification because of their city systems, and that's a whole nother topic. But long story short, they have on any given day, between 1,850 and 2,000 students walking through their halls. And like I said earlier, we're like 37, 38. So our whole thing is our biggest value for us is our literal human resources, the number of kids we have. Because we have a surplus of human beings, we want to make sure that we get the most out of them, because that's our niche. That's our thing, is that we have more.
Right.
Why did the North beat the South in the Civil War? They had more people, right? Like that. Right. That's why. And that's one of our things, is that we want to be able to, like for instance, for special teams, we don't have a bunch of starters on like kickoff return. like long run, when I say consuming, like plays that I'm going to have to run 40 yards to accomplish my goal are very taxing on the system. And so when we're able to put a Division I prospect at those spots that is not a starter,
bonus,
and the team, and the teams that we're playing
have to,
like, for instance, when we played Carrollton in the state championship game last year, like they had their special teams were off the charts good, but you started to look at who they had out there, and they had their best of the best. Like it was all Division I kids across the board. And I remember telling our head coach, I was like, listen, if we can just break even in the first half and not lose this field position battle, not lose the special teams battle,
we'll be good.
We've just got more people. We just will. And that's one thing that's been true for our program, is that we usually wear people down. And I don't think it's because we're elite conditioners. I think it's more just that we bring more people into the fold. It's just like an NFL roster. They're only allowed to bring 53. If some other team was allowed to bring 80, they're going to be able to spread that wealth around, and that's going to provide them advantage. Now, it doesn't guarantee you win, and shoot, we lose games around here, and like it's not always perfect, but if we kind of look at it from a macro sense and getting more people involved, and that's something that has been very much a positive in our program. And it also, that concept I just said also gets more kids on the field, which engages 100%. Engages more kids, which engages more people in the community, which a kid can look at. I'm going to be a special team stud as a sophomore. I can be a special teams master as a junior while also being in the rotation. And then as a senior, I might get removed from special teams because now I'm playing 70 snaps. And
it's more of a college-based system, right? Where you're looking at it as in terms of, hey, I'm going to college and I'm going to be, a special teamer to start. And then I'm going to build up as I progress in my career. The more years I get, the less specials I play, but that's because I'm wrapping as a 2, a 1, right, on offense or defense. And it's funny you say, you bring it up, right? Because I've had this argument for years, going back and forth with coaches in terms of, just the high school setting itself, right? And when you can get, especially now in today's day, the transfer portal is such a big thing. We see it starting to trickle down to high schools, and guys are leaving schools and things like that. Just that whole philosophy, right? One, to develop your underclassmen to kind of get on a varsity field, feel that feeling of, hey, I'm a varsity guy, varsity speed, varsity contact, right? All that kind of stuff, to be a part, to be in it and on the field, irregardless of reps in terms of what you're doing. With specials, you give them a taste of that, right? A little bit as sophomores. Okay, I'm rolling here, right? It also gives them as a sophomore something to strive for, because maybe they're not the starter on offense or defense. And some of these guys, that's never happened before, right? They've never not been the guy. They've never not played. So for them to get on the field for, look, we average around 20 to 25 special teams plays a game. If those guys can now look at that sophomore year like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is our role, they're fully juiced for those plays. And now you're getting more buy-in. There's more opportunity. They're not just, oh, well, all I have is a varsity game on Monday, and that doesn't really count, right? So the buy-in is big. The physical aspect of tasting that little bit of varsity time, of what it's going to be like when I am that starter on offense or defense, I think creates more, overall happiness program, right? You're not dealing with those sophomores that are miserable because all they're doing all week is scout team, and then they get a quote throwaway game on a Monday. Or see, we play our sub varsity games on Monday, which is interesting because I know a lot of states don't do that. It's always like right after school. It's not like a night game, so it's not like they're getting any bigger picture stuff of this is the game in town, and it just adds more. It just creates a better atmosphere, right? Then you get more numbers, right? Because we've seen from sophomore year to junior years where you lose a lot of guys that football, like they just don't want to do it anymore. And it's because of that. What am I looking forward to as a sophomore, right? You really have to kind of grind through that year. Allowing them to get on the field as specials not only helps your team overall, because now your starters can be fresh, right? But those guys now get something out of it. I think that's a huge thing that coaches, I really think, should look at a little bit more. Now, look, athletically, right? Speed, like all that stuff. Are you going to get the same with the sophomore that's there, or the senior who's already a 5-star? We get that part. But like you said, you can now get them to buy in and do certain like, man, I would rather a sophomore that's going to give me his everything, right? All that he has in the tank, than a senior who we're putting on there just because, he's that guy. Well, he looks at teams like, this is a playoff for me because I have to go run, a vertical route on the next play or whatever that is. I'll work with that all day, so it's kind of like a balancing act, right? It's why I love doing the special teams. I've done it for years. I love doing the JV because they directly correlate, right? It's now these guys play harder for me JV, knowing I set the depth chart on Friday nights for the special teams unit. And if you work really hard and do really well in the JV game, like, I'm there, right? Coach, am I on this today? Am I going to be on that? Like, it just overall, I think for the program, it adds a bonus. So it's awesome to hear that a program like Grayson does it that way, and to see the fruits of that labor, right? Because now those guys are going to stay there. They're not going to transfer to another school because they're seeing some time as a sophomore. I think if more programs did it that way, we'd have more overall development.
Can I answer your question a little bit better?
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good.
To answer your question a little bit better about like the feed the cats concept, right?
Right.
One of the things that we look at I'm much more of a visual person than an audio person, so I'm going to try to explain this as simple as I can. We have a matrix where we look at the x-axis is size of the athlete, and we do that number from a very simple formula. How much do I weigh in pounds divided by how tall am I in inches? And that number fluctuates anywhere from like 4.5 to 1.5. 4.5 is like morbidly obese kid. 1.5 is probably playing trumpet in the marching band. All right.
Right.
So we have that as one axis, and then we have just max speed mile per hour as the other axis. All right. And so obviously, like, you want a kid to like climb his way on that chart, right? So I want him to get bigger and I want him to get faster, so he climbs his way on the chart. And we can take all of our athletes on our team and plot them on the same chart and look at, like, is this kid for his size faster or slower than the average kid on our team? And so we're using that feed the cats methodology of max speed sprint training and trying to pull out athletes. So, okay, from the base sense of how we look at training athletes, right? We think of it as a triangle. A triangle has 3 points. The points are big, fast, and good. And I know that sounds simple, but like, we want to make sure our kids get bigger, they get faster, and they get better at the sport. All right. And then in the middle of the triangle, we have a circle, and that circle says strength. And we believe that strength can benefit and hinder all three of those points of that triangle. So we would like, Ronnie Coleman, the
Yep.
Okay. So like, would Ronnie Coleman be good on special teams? The answer is no, right? So like, there is we go on the concept, like, we want our kids to get big and fast and strong for sure. But we always want to make sure that we don't get so big and fast and now we can't change directions, which is going to decrease our ability to be good on that triangle. Right.
Is that a balancing act of how big they're getting? Like, so if they're getting too big relative to their speed is not progressing.
Okay. So I'm glad you bring that up.
Yeah.
So on that chart, right? So like, there's a cross reference where you look at, like, for instance, if I have a kid and he's a 240-pound offensive tackle and he knows to get recruited, he needs to get to 275, 280, right?
Right.
We don't necessarily care if that kid gets faster. If he does, he's a freak. Like, if he gains 40 pounds and gets faster, he's a freak.
Right.
Genetics is doing our job for us. But like with a kid like that, we don't necessarily need him to get faster. We just need him to not lose significant strength. I'll give you an example. We had a defensive lineman last year who's now at North Carolina State, and he was weighing like 265, 270, and he could run. I remember it vividly. I'm out there with the lasers, and Memphis is out there watching us work out. He runs 19.9 miles an hour. And it just looked freaky, right? But he knew, like, to be a nose tackle in P4 football, you have to be able to not give ground on a double team. Because you're eventually going to get doubled by two guys that both weigh 320, and you can't give up ground. So he gained the weight to get to 300. He couldn't run 19.9 anymore, but he could still run 18. But on that chart I just described, he didn't lose caliber, if that makes sense. Like, that speed for that size kept him at the same
100%
value. And it actually made him more valuable for the specific position he was playing. So, like, we don't I'll give you an example. We have another kid on our team who like a, sawed off, like 5'11", 6 foot, 300-pound guard, and just not super quick linearly. It's killing me there. Can't in a straight line, right? And like, his thing is, well, if I lose a little bit of weight, will I become more explosive? And the truth was, he just didn't. Like, he didn't get faster, but he got weaker. And so it was like, we told him, we're like, listen, genetically, that's just like maybe not in your makeup. You're just maybe not a fast twitch guy. So you need to be a strong guy. And so just being able to relay that information to our athletes so they can make the best decisions for their progress. Right? Because how big you want to be is a lot of times based on your life choices, right?
Right.
Do I want to consume more calories than I burn in a day?
Right.
And so we try to provide as much feedback. So think of it as like feed the cats with a cross reference for some kind of other things that we're looking at.
Do you adjust so if there's a guy that's one of your skill guys, right, and you're balancing that size and speed ratio, and you see that maybe he's getting bigger weight wise, or maybe too quickly, and his speed is not progressing with it, do you change some of the workouts to get him back on that trajectory? Do you adjust things, or do you just say, okay, we're not worried about that?
Now, when you talk about size for high school athletes, it usually happens very, very slowly, like at a snail's pace, right? Unless a kid has a huge, puberty bump, but like, for the most part, like, if a kid can gain 10 pounds of lean muscle over a course of an off season, there was a lot of work that went into that, and it didn't just happen in a month, right? It happened over a long stretch. For the most part, when you see large fluctuations in weight with high school kids, it's usually two main things. It's fat and it's hydration. And so sometimes it's more about like taking better care of yourself. Now, you're right about that. Like, okay, kid gets bigger, he gets slower. One of the questions I ask the kids, and I talk about, like, what's your superpower? Like, if your superpower is your speed, if your speed is the reason why you're on the field, and these other things will take away from that, now you don't, like, if Tyreek Hill's not fast, he's not Tyreek Hill.
Right. He's got to control his weight. Right. He's got
100%. Yeah. Absolutely.
So we'll have kids, and this is the heartbreaking part. This is the tough part, is like, the best version of yourself may be at 155 pounds, but if I'm 155 pounds at 5'9", I'm not going to get recruited.
Right.
But if you go weigh 175 instead of 155, now you're not going to make the plays you need to be recruited. And that's just the natural,
you may not even get on the field then anymore, right? In high school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you might not be fast enough to be able to do the things you need to do, and someone else can take your job, especially at a school like yours, right? Where
I was going to say, especially at a place like that, where
there's always somebody behind
surrounding you.
Yeah, for sure.
So that absolutely has to. And the truth is, if they're 5'9" and they're super 160 pounds or 55 pounds, they're super effective for you guys. Even though obviously we talked about Georgia being underrecruited, there is a place where that person's going to be able to fit. You know what I mean? If he's that fast, let's say, and
right.
even if he's maybe undersized for Division I, maybe he could play FCS, maybe he could play Division II, whatever, and still be very, very effective. And so, you probably have this too. Like, some kids that you like look at and you go, all right, his max level is D2. He's close to his max level already in high school. He's not going to go as high as this other kid who's behind him, who eventually, when that guy becomes a starter, he's going to be the Division I player, but he's not ahead of this kid now, right? So we're playing this kid who's a little bit ahead of this guy, even though this guy's got more potential down the line. I'm sure that happens here and there in high school, and where and you know what a guy can do now versus what a guy could do later on, and then as that, you know, like a junior to a sophomore or type of thing. And I think it's important for players not to just put on weight just to put on weight, because I think that ends up, if it affects their speed, putting on weight to put on weight is to me is a negative. Because look, if you're a lineman, there's obviously a certain amount of weight you want to continue to put on. But if you put on weight and it slows you down, you're definitely less effective on the field. You know what I mean? So do you have to have those conversations with players? Because every high school kid wants to put on weight. That's what every high school kid wants to do, right? That's what they all want to do. They want to lift and put on weight, and they want to get strong, right? And yes, they want to be faster, but they don't you know, they don't want to feel like they're going to get pushed around or anything. Do you have to have, like, do you use like body fat metrics and those kind of things to help them understand where they're at and those and that stuff?
Yeah, you know, we don't get that granular with it.
Okay.
You know, we track weight every month, and if we have like a big outlier, we will track weight more than once a month with that kid if we're really concerned about hydration or that was actually one of our main focuses for this season was in-season weight retention. And that was like a huge thing that our head coach emphasized. We improved our nutrition program. And when I say nutrition program, I don't mean this big elaborate thing. I mean that when a kid needs calories, we can provide calories. So they're provided with food when they get done with their workouts. They're provided food when they get done with their practice. And we've seen per kid a 0.2%, a 0.2 pound increase of weight loss. I hope that makes sense. So we did not lose as much weight on average over our top 100 athletes that we did last year. And the thing with us is our season is just so dang long. Like, it doesn't, if we get to the state championship game, it goes till the middle of December. And so, you know, a kid can go from 205 to 189, and you're just, why can't he do what he did at the beginning of the year? And sometimes it's because he's not the same person that he was physically. So that was a huge emphasis for us. For the most part, the conversations are always about gaining good weight, and then, you know, maintaining it the best we can through the course of the rigorous season.
That's a great point about how long the season is for you guys. Wow. So
yeah, Florida too. Florida's a really, really long season, right? 15 games. And you look at Texas too. They play a lot of non-district games before they even get into the district games, which are what counts for the playoffs. So coaches approach that differently, right? Do you use your first four to feel out your roster? Do you schedule teams that are of higher caliber, lower? Like, there's just so many of those intangibles that goes into scheduling and whatnot in terms of in the high school world that I think play a huge role. And then also access to the off the field stuff. How many times a week do teams lift? What are they doing, outside of practice schedule? Look, you're a Feed the Cats guy. Those Feed the Cats guy are on and off the field in way less time than some of these other teams. That all plays a role, right? How many miles are you putting on your guys per week? How much are you hitting? All of those factors play a role into that, right, Dave? And we've seen and talked to guys that skin the cat a bunch of ways. And look, a lot of guys win doing it very different ways.
I'm curious as to because it's such a long season. What do you do with them postseason? And to get them, like, do you give them off? Do they go into another sport? The majority of your kids, how do you structure that program? Because that is a long grind season, and I know the Feed Cats philosophy is continue to build speed, obviously, throughout. You're doing all those things, but there is a toll, obviously, in the body, especially as good as you guys are, right? So, because you're going to play for a long time, they're going to play a lot of games at all levels. What do you guys do postseason when that season comes to an end to like get their bodies back, and how do you begin to ramp that part up for them?
Yeah. Now, when we're talking feed the cats too, I will say like I'm let's call my like a feed the cats practitioner. Like that's something I believe in.
Yep. Right. You don't.
But I will also say like we're not like a sprint based football program.
Right.
Really, what we model ourselves around is very similar to the Chip Kelly Oregon high-low model. So our Monday, Tuesday practices are the traditional practice you'd expect to see at high schools all across the country. And then our Wednesday, we do a no sweat Wednesday where we try to bottom out the central nervous system for full recovery. That day is completely a mental day. And I have a lot of coaches ask me, they're like, how are you able to do that? And I'll be completely honest. Like if we didn't have a large, diligent, locked in coaching staff, we wouldn't be able to do that. Like if we only had 4 coaches and 60 kids and everything's a mental day, like it wouldn't work right. But because of what we're able to do with our numbers, that day is super beneficial for us. And we do yoga, dynamic movement, ice baths. So in season, if you want to think about it this way, like we do that every week. So over the course of, we're talking a 19-week season, we have 19 less practices than a team that's going to bang on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and do some version of something on Thursday. And then our Thursday is like our fast Thursday. So we're going to do low time under tension work in the weight room. So our Olympic lifting, we're going to do our max velocity sprinting, and then we're going to do we call it a mock game, but it's like a super fast paced get on the field, get off the field. It's got to be done by a certain time anyway, because our JV kids have to go to their games on Thursday. So just being calculated with the amount of workload we put on the kids in season, I think is a big part of it. When we get to the off season, we don't do. Usually, Coach Bryant, our head coach, takes a large chunk. Sometimes it's even as much as 2 months, where the only work the kids are going to get is going to be in class. So we have a fourth, fifth period where we have all of our football kids. So they'll work out, they'll keep getting stronger, but there's definitely a recognition. Well, you know, what's tricky too is like you have some kids that are coming off a JV season who like they haven't played a game in 3 months and they need to adapt very quickly so they can be in shape for spring ball. Where you have another kid who just played 15 games and they're dealing with a shoulder and an ankle and a knee, and we need to be a little bit more careful with them. So our strength coach does a great job. He divides our kids up into like a developmental group versus our varsity group. So our developmental guys are going to get more workload, where our varsity guys and sometimes, and I hope this makes sense, like sometimes a kid who is a very big contributor for us is in the developmental group because let's say like they came from another school, they don't have the strength base that we need them to have. So like they're effective enough for us to benefit on a Friday, but for them to be a starter next year, we need them to make a big gain. And if we wait 6 months to start those gains, they're not going to be where we need them to be. And obviously we're specifically, we're talking about people in the trenches, right? People who are going to have to bang and lean on people every play. So we do all those things. And with the off season, you said, do kids go to other sports? For a large majority of our kids, no, they don't. And so to give you some perspective, like our school, we're also very, very good in basketball. We've been top 10 in the country the last couple of years in basketball as well. So like you ain't just gonna walk out there and make the basketball team. Like they're elite as well. So we have a handful of kids that play basketball. We have a handful of kids that play baseball. And then with track, we almost have like a couple teams inside of the track team. So the group that I work with in track, and when I say I'm the head track coach, really what that is I make sure that the buses are there when they need to be, that the schedule's on point, and that we have uniforms that look good. But like, I wouldn't consider myself like I wouldn't consider myself the head coach as in terms of like, I let our coaches be the head coach of their sport
event
because
right,
exactly. And I use the term sport because it's multiple different sports going on in one location that we've decided to call track and field.
right.
So we have kids on our track team. Like a majority of our points in track are going to be scored by kids that are not on the football team. Because again, when you have a school as large as ours, you're going to have kids that are club track kids. Like track is their sport. Some of our best track athletes are kids that played freshman and sophomore football and realize like, oh, I'm way better at this than I am at that. And so they end up just emphasizing that. The group that I work with, and I jokingly call them the Wednesday Warriors, but it's kids who they want to get faster for football through track. So what we do with them is I call them Wednesday Warriors because we host like all comers meets at our place on Wednesdays. Is those athletes, like they're not going to get the full track experience, right? Like we're not taking them to Saturday invitationals and things like that. They're going to get a speed endurance on Monday. They're going to get a max speed on Tuesday. They're going to do their event on Wednesday, and they're going to do a recovery workout on Thursday. But they're maybe running in 5, 6, 7 track meets a year. They're not doing the full load that our varsity kids are. Because a lot of kids are using track for football. And I know there's a lot of track coaches who they don't love that framing. At my school, in my situation, I'm crazy if I don't frame it in that way.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and then I have other coaches on my staff, like our cross country coach. She takes care of the distance training, right? Because at the end of the day, they're just changing surface, but they're not changing sport, right? Now they're running on a track instead of out in the woods, but it's the same. And then I have another coach on staff, Gerald Williams, who's one of the best track coaches in the state of Georgia, elite when it comes to training, distance sprinters and hurdlers. So I let him do his thing. So if you were to come out and watch our practice, you might see like, oh, that looks very much like a traditional track practice over in that corner. And that looks very much like a Tony Holler feed the cats practice. And that's because we're operating in completely different spheres, just under the same umbrella of being the Grayson Track and Field program.
Very interesting. Well, you're servicing the things that the athletes are looking to get from track and field, right? The ones that really are track and field athletes. That's their first thing. They focus that direction. The ones that are football players that are looking to get faster, you're structuring the program around that and making sure they get what they need to get. And I think that's actually, especially at the size of the school that you're at, that's a thing that has to get done. That allows them to get better, the athletes utilizing track and field without having to worry about like, hey, only so many people could run an invitational, and then all of a sudden they're never running in any meets, right? Or they're running on only a couple meets, and they're like, what am I doing out here? Type of thing. I think that's a really good that's a really good structure. So they still get some competition, right? They still get to track themselves as far as how fast they're getting without having to realize, oh, this kid over here has run 10.30 and 100. I'm never going to be, and the second guy's 10.70, and I'm never going to break into that group. You know what I mean? And then they just say, I like how you have that structured. And obviously at a big program, that's a way to get them to be able to do a second sport where they can get that development part of them. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're going to say something.
I was going to say, like a lot of our kids that are in that boat that you're talking about, they don't necessarily want to go to an invitational Saturday.
Right.
Because
they just want to work.
Right. They're being recruited. They're going on visits. They're on a 7-on-7 team. They're going to a combine. They're doing this. Like that's what their weekends look very much like a college football prospect.
Right.
Not necessarily like a varsity track athlete. So it's a lot of them, like the truth is like there are so few kids out there that actually break 11. Like there's really not that many.
Right.
That like are skilled enough to go play high level football and break 11. For a lot of our kids, it's just, can I go from 11.7 to 11.2?
Right.
And if I can do that, my access to making bigger plays is going to expand. So like my whole thing is moving the needle with those kids, and when the elite ones pop out, then boom, now we have some high level varsity kids. But like in our county, like if you can't run like 10.6, 10.7, like you're not making the finals in the county meet.
Right.
Like and a lot of the kids that are there, they don't play football. Like they are track athletes who have been track athletes since they were 7, and their goal is to go be a track athlete in college and then go to the Olympics. Like that's like you're encroaching on their space, right? Like, and so that's one thing down here.
Well, I've seen what you guys have run in the 4x1. I mean, it's unbelievable the times you guys do. I mean, well, your county in general, when you see the times come up and that boom, 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 in the 4x100, it's like it's
well, like last year, we're next to, because we won our heat in sectional. We're next to Buford in the 4x1 in the prelims, and like we were in lane 5, and I hated that we were in lane 5 because we had no shot to beat them unless they dropped the baton. Like, and I'm not saying that as a negative. Like, they're trying to break the state record. We're trying to get into the final.
Right.
And sure enough, their guy goes flying past us, and we have one of our ugliest handoffs on the year at the second handoff. They saved it. We got around. We barely made it into the final while they broke the state record. Like, they did what they needed to do, and we barely did what we needed to do. And I was trying to explain to our kids, like, they're going to go run 39 today, guys.
Like, 39s, yeah. I've seen them run. Yeah.
We're trying to run 41 low.
Right.
Like, and 39-9 and 41 low are like, it's going to look like you're getting absolutely destroyed. You're not. They're just otherworldly. And so the good news about all that is they had a couple.
They're better than most countries. Most countries they're better than.
The good news about that is a couple of those kids are really good football players, and down here all the kids graduate early. So I think like 2 or 3 of those kids on that 4x1 are going to be playing college football in January, and not running. Hopefully, not running 39 right next to us in the at the state championship. No, it was crazy. So, like, no one had ever broken 40 in Georgia, and they run the races on the same schedule, regardless of your location, right? So you have Langston Hughes High School, who's in 5A, and then we're in 6A, the largest classification. Langston Hughes, in real time, breaks the school, like runs 39, whatever it was, is the first team to do it. And then literally 2 minutes later, Buford breaks their record at a different location on the other corner of the state. So yeah, no, that was social media was flying that day. And
it was.
I jokingly told my kids, I said, my goal is that when they get the picture of them breaking the state record, that we're in the frame. And
then I think a week later, Duncanville in Texas ran below that, I believe, and they were, I don't remember if they might have been high 38s or maybe, or low, or might have been very low 39. I mean, to me, it's like these times. I mean, the times are mind blowing to me that high school kids are running sub 40 in the 4x. I mean, you see it every year because you guys are running 41 and you're like, oh, we're just like 41 would win the states in New Jersey. So,
that's something we talk about, right, Dave?
Is really amazing.
About, when we look at that times and we try to tell like our parents and our kids, right? And it's like, hey, like, oh wow, that's really good for here, but look at it on a bigger scale when you want to argue about, well, why doesn't he have a scholarship or this guy or that? There's a bigger scale here. Look at some of these other states, like you're not even on the podium, buddy. Or you know what I mean? Like it's really hard. But yeah, help with that in terms of, visualizing that for other people. But this is like what we're talking about, right? When that senior gives me his list of schools he wants to go to, and he's got a lot of SEC schools in it. And it's like, bud, you run a 4.740. This isn't what we're talking about here, man. So to just see that stuff, to be able to see it, it's a totally different. It's not
40-75. 40-75 won New Jersey, which is, by the way, might be the state record. So because they have a couple Division I football players on that team in Burlington Township, and then second was Bergen Catholic, which is a powerhouse of football. They have a couple football players on that 4x1, and they ran 41-1. So like you see the gap just in that, like 40-75 was
right.
was the win, 41-1.
And two of those, and for those kids are young buck already Division I scholarship offer football players, right, on that Bergen Catholic team. It's just it's so crazy to see when you comparison. It's
amazing how it's amazing the track and times in the South, and obviously it's great to be able to that's one of the beauty of a little bit warmer weather. You could train a little bit more outdoors if you need to, and you're not locked indoors most of the time. Although it's not as much of an excuse anymore in New Jersey because we have a few really nice indoor facilities. So these kids who are really track athletes, they don't have an issue getting to meet. They have, we have a few of those beautiful like indoor facilities. So for track. But Coach, it's been great having you on. It's really, really fascinating listening to the program you guys have and how focused the athletes are because of the size of the school and because of so many good players in all sports you have, that there really is a need for athletes to have a level of specialization to get done what they need to get done in a school like that. Otherwise, you do get left behind, right? Whether you're a baseball player, a football player, track athlete, basketball player, like the very rare kid that you have, probably the bona fide slam dunk guy going to Georgia, could play a second sport, but almost everybody else is really probably even, maybe even your lower level Division I athletes probably still have to play mostly one sport in your school because you have so many big time athletes that and it's a big school, right, that come through the program. It's really, really fascinating. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Really, really is a pleasure.
No, I appreciate y'all. This is a great show. I look forward to listening to some of your other shows.
No doubt.
Thanks, Coach.
Have a great day, Coach, and we'll see you real soon.
All right, be well, guys.
All right, bye. That was awesome. Very interesting listening to, like, when you hear the size of a pro school like that, 3,800 kids. It's so big, Derek. It's
listen.
So in New Jersey,
when I was at obviously right. Well, when I was at going from Passaic Valley, which was a Group 3, to Group 3, Group 4 when we were there, to West Orange, which is a Group 5, and there's that's like 22. That's like 2,400 kids. It was really eye-opening, especially us being Group 1, coming from Group 1 where you knew everybody, right? And now I have a team of, it was just a plethora of dudes, right? And there was just guys everywhere. And to have those amount of kids within the school, like you had those guys that really specialized, right? Whereas, your best football player was usually your best basketball player, was usually your best baseball player, like go to the board. Like now you go to schools like West Orange that are a bigger size like that, dude. We don't do any other sports because we wouldn't even get on the field.
Right.
Like we wouldn't even be a part of it because this guy runs track.
You have to be such a superior athlete.
Beyond like
that
way
you're
above.
Almost a natural, right? Almost a natural.
100%. Absolutely. Yep.
Let's say football is your main sport and you're such a natural athlete that you're good enough to play on the basketball team, or you're good enough, which is, track is more natural to football unless you're at a really big like Grayson is, where you most of the time a really good, like, let's say wide receiver would do well in track.
What was it? 3,600 students,
3,700 kids.
That's a fucking, dude. That's a college campus. That's like, you know what I'm saying? Like that is a small, like it's, and to just look, it's so. I mean, look, there's the reasons he went, but to hear the reasons he moved to Georgia, right? To just hear how the education system is set up, right? With just to kind of benefit teachers or coaches, that right there tells you how much sports matter.
It's even though like I'm in a big town, it's still unfathomable the number of kids in the school. I mean, I guess if you combine if North and South were one high school, or both bricks were, that would be what you would have.
Kind of what, look, this is the experiment, Dave,
Jackson,
is
I think
Jackson, right? Because Jackson just did that where they smashed both high schools together. Now, a little bit of, we're talking about like some of the population stuff, right? Like, whereas he's talking like Georgia's just booming. It's what he say, the state has doubled in size and population since 1980. Okay. But you look at a place like Jackson where those high schools that were already bigger high schools come together automatically by numbers, you expect them to be really good at a lot of things. And so to see what that will be 5 years down the road is very interesting to me, because this town where I live in, like, there's already been talks of like, hey, why don't we just put them all together? Like, if this thing works out in a positive for Jackson, I could see a lot of other towns going to this kind of model. It's just hard in Jersey because there's so many people, especially where we come up north, where there's so many towns that are this high school, that high school, this high school with 400 kids, 500 kids, 600 kids, 700 kids. Go down south by Philly. We talk about South Jersey. Dude, you're talking monster towns that are now part of one high school, right? Where you're just getting a plethora of kids, which is now going to add, there's just more athletes in the mix because the numbers are there. You know, it's the reason they can do special teams the way they, right?
You know,
because a lot of schools just don't even have the numbers to do that.
You know, I see it's hard. It's hard for me because I grew, you too, like you grew up in a small town, and you know, like as much as I wanted to get out of the small town, like I wanted to get out. But the one thing I would say was in its corner from an experience standpoint, and for me from a competence standpoint as an athlete, probably for you too as a competence as an athlete, because you grew up in a small town, there wasn't like as many people, and if you were like one of the better athletes, you could play as many sports as you really wanted to and probably have a level of success. And a lot of kids, even who were okay, could play as many sports as they wanted to and still have a level of success. Now, obviously, a lot of small school athletes don't get recruited because they say, oh, the competition you play, blah, 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 that kind of thing. But if a small school athlete has the right mentality and is good enough,
right?
Like, you don't know any different as a kid. If you think you're good, you don't know that you're from a tiny town. You just go in there and like, I've always been good. I'm gonna go compete. Like I'm sure you didn't have
any of that. I had no inkling of anything outside. That's why playing AAU basketball was so eye-opening for me to see what was outside, right? Because look, I was the better player, and I thought, hey, you're pretty good at this, right? And then you go into that, and it's like I just had no clue of what any of that was.
It was the same way. Look, track was the same way. I would go to nationals, and I'd be like,
Dave,
wow.
If I was a kid being raised in this era, right? Because I know like how my personality was, like, that to me, I think I would struggle constantly comparing myself to others. Like,
because I didn't growing up. I didn't compare myself.
I had no clue.
I thought I was the best. People would try to say shit to me. Oh, like, like how, when you're in town, like people say shit to you, wait till you go this or wait till you go to that. You're not going to be able to get on the field. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I never believed the damn word they said.
I think I was really fortunate, right? That my coaches, right? They were really good at keeping me isolated, right? In terms of, dude, you just do what you need to do. Right. Until now, you get into this, like, names always in the paper, and you're on this all-state team with names from these guys that are going to this school, right? Where I really felt it was when I played in the North-South game, and everybody's going to this school, going to that school, going to this school, and it's like, wait, you're going where? Right? Like, it was kind of like, okay, like that, but my coaches also put it like
you still didn't have a problem competing though, right? So,
that was always the thing, was like, now you put me surrounded by all of those top level guys, and guess what? I'm still one of the better guys. You know what I'm saying? Like that was, you know what I'm saying? Like going to Chuck Mound's, like going to one of Chuck Mound's showcases, right? As a sophomore was extremely eye-opening.
Go to that though. You're excited.
You're juiced. I want to see where
not because you fear it, but because you've done well and you want to see how you stack up. What I think with the, you know, I go back and forth on this because obviously I live in a big town and I grew up in a small town, and you're coaching in a big town. You grew up in a small town, right?
Yeah.
And I go back and forth in it, and I see so many good athletes that don't realize that they're as good as they are because they're comparing themselves sometimes within their own town with other kids who are really good and don't realize, like, it's one of the, I mean, listen, last night we got beat.
Or they're just wrongfully comparing themselves, right? Hey,
well, I'm saying
this
like
guy's in the NFL. It's just
like football.
Like, you're not supposed to run what it. Yeah,
Derek, in my town, like we played last night at River Plaza. They beat us because we had to do that.
Oh, you played last?
Yeah. I mean, they beat us. They beat us.
A team you've already played.
Yeah. They beat us 34-13. Okay. And we made mistakes, but it was they're really good. But we can play with them. But here's the funny part. It's not about whether we could play with them, but it's not even about that. What was interesting is this. We smack almost everybody else. We smack everybody, right? And it's so, but our kids live in this town where they're all of them are always comparing each other. Like, you know what I'm saying? They constantly and so they don't realize it until they play other towns that they're actually really good. Right. So it's
because it works both ways, right? Like it works. I think it works both ways, right? And a lot more times everybody is more focused on the negative side of it than it is a positive side. Something that I think this generation deals with because of the access to seeing so many other things and the comparison, like the clicks and all this other shit. The self-confidence is so like low because they're always comparing. I didn't get as many likes as this guy, and the clicks are over here, and like it's hard.
It's very it compounds.
And I think I would have struggled with it as well, dude. Like 100%, right? Maybe not on an open forum, dude, where like it would have noticed.
That's why small school
But I know for me,
that's why small school football in New Jersey, outside of certain places like Glassboro or whatever, you know, down south,
right, Mountain Lakes, right, like these hammers.
But the overall level of small school football in New Jersey, especially in North Jersey, used to be really good. When I grew up,
oh, buddy,
a lot of really good players, and even when you're there, still a lot of really good players, right? Like guys, you're like, dude, these guys,
the Butlers, New Providences of the world, right? Like your Madisons of the world, like these. I'm naming schools where dudes were. It was like, look, now it might have only been one or two dudes, right? But it's these guys.
That's changed a lot.
They leave because they go to private school. They go to this
they're
because
told they're told you can't make it.
You can't make it from a small
because they're comparing themselves. They're looking at social media. They're looking at where the best players
are coming from. Right? Look, I had a mom that
I think Grayson thing what Grayson is doing is unbelievable. It's amazing. It's amazing. I think about myself growing up. I would miss not being able to do a second sport personally. Because the truth is, if I was at Grayson High School, 100%. I probably would have had to specialize in football. I would have specialized in football. So would you.
And we've talked about this so many times, Dave. We've talked about it so many times. We loved football, but we loved when football ended, right? Yeah. I loved it when
there is no end there.
We're going to basketball now, dude. Like, let's go, right? Like, and it's why I think that is why you see so many guys that specialize, especially in football, burn out after their freshman or sophomore year in college because they just, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. right? I mean, there's a bunch of other facets that go into it.
Yeah,
but that adds to it.
My wrestling experience, okay, Derek.
I'm shocked.
My wrestling experience is what I think happens to a lot of kids in football or other sports now in general. And my wrestling experience was this: my parents, me and my brother were driving them nuts. At 6 years old and 5, my brother was 5. They put us in wrestling. Okay, not for us to actually wrestle in matches, but like
to just go
get out of the house. Can you please take them and let them roll around on some mats and do something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what invariably happens, the competitor in you, at 6 years old,
you're like, I'm gonna get good.
Yeah, I want to go in matches, right? So, dude, by the time I was like 9 years old, I was unbelievable in wrestling. Unbelievable. By the time I was 14, I was still unbelievable. I'd win, there could be, I think one year I had an off year because I refused to work out. I was rebelling against my parents. So I refused to do my workouts. But every other year I did my workouts that I was supposed to do, I would win 99% of my matches. Okay. I'd lose like 1 or 2 a year. And it would always be the other best kid, you know what I mean? Type of deal. But by the time I got to be a 8th grader, I was done. I had a great year. I only lost one match that year, but I was done. I was mentally done with wrestling because I had done it since I was 6. And it was pretty it's an intense sport to begin with, right? So it's an intense sport. And I feel like with the specialization, and obviously this was me where I only wrestled in the winter. It wasn't like I wrestled, year round. My parents
imagine if you did it year round.
If I did it year round, then there's no doubt I might have not have been willing to do it anymore after high school. I wouldn't even done it. If I was a wrestling specialist, I probably would have just did it in high school and been done after that. But I did other sports, and football was my main sport. But wrestling, people always be like, "What was your best sport?" Because I did football and track in high school. I'm like, my best sport wasn't football and it wasn't track. My best sport was wrestling. I was a great wrestler, and I mean, really, like, could probably have been a college wrestler if I stayed with it. But I wouldn't say the word hate. I just was like done with it. It wasn't I didn't like it, you know what I mean? It wasn't like I hated the sport. It wasn't that I thought, oh, I resented it. It wasn't that feeling at all. It was just like it ran its course for me, and I was like, okay,
right. And that was it.
Yeah, like, and the first couple of years, I almost went out for wrestling because I kind of missed it, but I really missed more the competition. But by the time I got to be a junior, I didn't even bother me anymore. I wasn't even thinking about it. It wasn't even like
shoulda, coulda, woulda. Nope.
No, I didn't. It wasn't until I got to be an adult, really, after I was done with sports completely. I was like, man, like the sport of it was really bad. And people used to say it to me all the time when I was a kid. They're like, "You're a really good football player. You're a really good track athlete, but you know what you're really good at? Wrestling." And I'd always be like, "Yeah, whatever." I didn't put like I wrestled in wrestling season. That was it. And I think that happens to the majority of athletes now, unfortunately. What happened, what kind of went my wrestling is you can get indifferent to your sport by the end of your career. And you just say, hey, you know what? I enjoyed my time doing that sport. I enjoyed it. And whenever that time period is, you're done with it. That never got that way for me in football until I was literally at the end of my career. And that was more because football in college is so difficult physically that when I was in my last year, I was like, hey, if I don't go on to the NFL, like I'm done, like that's it.
Right.
And like I'm not trying to pursue these other angles. Now other guys did, but I was finally at kind of that point. But I was also a good student. Like if I wasn't a good student, maybe I would have thought differently about it. And I would have thought that maybe this was a way out. But it's interesting because I feel like, and Olsen talks about this a lot, and because he had a nice experience, even though he went to a pretty big high school, but he was still able to.
Oh, Wayne Hills was big.
Yes, but it's not like Grayson. You know what I mean?
But he was a freak. Oh, right. But now here I look at this too, though, right? Like if you put Olsen at any of those other big schools, he's still probably going to be able to do that stuff, right? But he had a really, right. That's right too. But he talks about having a really awesome high school experience with his buddies. Like, look, played at the University of Miami, right? Carolina Panthers, Chicago Bears, right? Talks about the best times in his life were school football football, high school sports with those guys doing what they did. And I don't know if that would be the same thing if it was at a different place or it was a different situation or a scenario. I just think that kids nowadays, it's a lot. It is a lot. They're constantly being pushed by outside sources, right? Hey, you got to do baseball year round, right? That travel coach has his own agenda, right? He needs that kid to, which is bullshit. I can't.
Well, I would say some have an agenda, some don't. Some do, some don't. Right.
Go enjoy high school sports because, look, I tell guys all the time.
If you can, if you're in a position to enjoy it and play a couple of sports. Like, if you're at Grayson, like, you know what? You've got to figure out.
You don't just go out for the football team, dude, and be like, hey, I'm on the Grayson football team. Like, I tell my guys all the time, even where I'm at, like, buddy, this is way too much time and effort on your part to do something that you don't even want to be here. It's not worth it, dude. Go enjoy, right? Like, go find something else that makes it tick. And for some of you guys, like, I really respect and the guys that are open and honest about coach. Like, all I want to do is I just want to be a part of this, and I want to play to the end of my high school career, and that's it. I don't want to go to the next level. This is what I want to do. I want to get out here. I've done this for a really long time. I like being with the guys and doing all that. Okay, buddy. Thank you. Right? Like, I understand what it's like to be a part of it.
You know what?
It's funny. You have a good experience, dude.
I always say this to my father, and he always but I tease him. I'm like, no, it's fine. I always say to him, you know, you roped me back into sports, you know, in 2001. You roped me back in here, and like, I'm always conflicted about it. I'm always conflicted about the fact that obviously I love the excitement. Like, if I was a coach at Grayson, I would love it, dude. I'd be juiced everything about football. Like, as a coach,
could you imagine
as a coach?
For this guy, like, and especially for this guy to be like,
and the players are committed like that.
Well, and this is where people always ask me, Dave, like, you know, what was your experience like at Bosco? And I'm like, look, man, the best part about Bosco was I never coached effort, right? Like, the guy that was bottom of the depth chart worked just as hard every day as the starter, as the 5-star, right? Like, that was never in it, and that's what was about it was you guys just wanted to be coached almost to a point where sometimes you're like, buddy, like, we're good here, right? Okay, like, but that's now you see the other side of it where it's like, guys, like, let's go pick it up, we gotta go, like, hey man, like, this is a big game, right? Like, it didn't matter. Those kids treated every practice, every workout session, everything with such a high level of intensity because they loved it. They just wanted to be there in it and do and use that for, like, whatever it was. It's just that's the biggest difference I see.
As I go back and forth, that every kid's different, and obviously some kids should specialize for different reasons, and some kids shouldn't. But if you're able to play a second sport, that's great. Like, if you're doing travel in one, and somehow you're able to squeeze a second travel in, I don't know how it's tough to do, but your third or fourth sport should just be a rec sport. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Like, yeah. Like, I remember that they constantly asked me to, like, go play baseball, right? Like, can we go play baseball? Like, now look, if I dialed into baseball, maybe I was a really good baseball player that would have had the shot, but I didn't want to do it. But even so, like, I probably should have done it, right? Like, I know if my high school had lacrosse, I'd have been all in on it. That would have been awesome. You know what I mean?
Right. You would have been a sick.
Like, even look, I tried track. Shit was not for me, dude. Like, it could have been because my first,
right? You played basketball.
Loved basketball, dude. That was my first varsity sport.
Sports that you kind of traveled, but
correct.
But like, I like it's hard in high school to do a third sport unless you're really really gifted. Unless it's a sport like track, because everyone's allowed on a team. No one's cutting, right? So you could go. You could run and get better. Like what Grayson's doing with the football players is really smart, you know? Like they could run, they could get better, they could get some times, and then they could still go to colleges on the weekends and all. Like, I think that's a sport you can do. It is hard.
That was another thing. Like, I never about like visits or any of that kind of shit, right? So like now senior year, it's like, hey, I got to take a visit to Monmouth. I'm gonna miss this Saturday basketball game. Like, sorry, coach. And he's like, dude, football's your thing. You're good. It ate me up more than it ate him. He was like, oh hell no, I was expecting to miss 4 games. He's like, you're scheduling visits around basketball season. Like, I was like, oh shit, man.
My senior year, we had won the state individual track championships when I was a junior. I cost us the state relay championship my senior year because I had to go to a UConn visit. So why? What happened? Is that news you're looking at?
No, I'm just saying that game. I just that whole thing was was so interesting to me, right? Because I was just brought up on such a team. Team always came first, dude. Like it didn't matter. Like that's great. You want to go play in college, but how is that like that's hurting the team?
Yeah.
Right. And now it's just so opposite. Like it was always about Butler tradition, Butler this, be a team guy, do whatever's going to help you. I mean, in reality, I mean, shit, junior year, I'm starting because that's what the team needed. And I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I wanted no part of that, but you do what you do to help your team. It's just a different outlook on things now, right? Like guys would much rather, coach, I'm not doing that. Like, would I play that? I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, it's why I try and get those younger guys to buy in before they realize, like, you know what I mean? Like, I only play receiver. It's like, no, dude, you're gonna play a lot of other things right now. Like, I'm gonna send you in to just run off the edge and block this extra point because you're not doing anything else the rest of the game, and you're on the 4x1 team, so you should be able to like bend and come off the line fast, right? Like, I don't know. It's just different now with the whole team and with the transfer portal and all those guys. Like, I think that's really what's been lost within it a little bit is the locker room stuff of like, how, like I want to stay with these guys, but other guys, hey, I'll make $1 million elsewhere. I'm going to go do that.
No doubt.
Which look, I may have had a different outlook, dude. Think about it, we talk about it all the time. Like college, dude, if someone's telling me I'm going to pay you $100,000 to come on my team, what are we talking about? Like I might not make that in, like, or some of these numbers, like I might not make that when I go into the work field. So I'm going to go do that. Like, I don't know how I would have received that or what the money thing would have thrown in there. I mean, some of these guys coming from the situations they're in to get that money in college, like they may never make that again.
Yep.
I did see a hot take last night. Shiano, somebody brought up Rutgers kind of paying like the amount, like paying players on a top level for the Big Ten. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, in order to be good paying the players or whatever. So somebody, I guess, like one of the reporters, I guess, kind of said like, hey, we've tried that at Rutgers. And he was like, whoa,
we didn't try.
Hold up. Like, we weren't even like, that's not even like, I can't even believe you think that, right? Like, we are not even close. Not even, I mean, he blew this guy out of the water, not in a negative way or whatever. He was just like, look, dude, if you think that, I want to make you and everyone else, because if you think it, that means 10 other people think it. We have not paid anyone, right? Like,
on any scale.
And that's what he said too. He goes, in retrospect, what it takes to win in the Big Ten, he wasn't even talking nationally. We haven't paid a fucking soul, dude. Right? Like nothing in regards to any of these teams that are winning or doing whatever. Like Rutgers has not done that. And he was like, I'm focused on Oregon. See you guys Saturday night.
Which is basically like, if we get smacked, don't bother me.
Right. Like, hey, they're coming here for a night game at, in Piscataway, with $1 million payroll, coming off a loss that they shouldn't have lost. Like, great, here we go. And he said, like, we've had so many injuries and some guys are coming back. Like, oh, like, here it comes. So get fucking ready. But I thought that was a really interesting,
I think Shiano does a good job of winning the jobs, winning the games he should win.
He's supposed to win.
But it's hard to get over the hump
You're not.
To win
You're
games
not going to get over the
shouldn't win. Right.
You're not beating Penn State. You're not beating Oregon. You're not beating shit
That has to be
fucking
frustrating.
USC. I mean, dude, how hard is that to know you're going to be 500 and make the Liberty Bowl every year?
It has to be
How
tough.
do you have
who's
that?
very driven, a guy that's very driven like him.
This is why I think you see so many assistant coaches there. They go there, they get. I've worked for Greg. I've worked in the Big Ten. Now I'm going to go somewhere where we're going to fucking win the national title. Because you're never going to have a chance. We're going to be in the playoff. Look, at best, middle of the pack in the Big Ten, dude. Like, you got to go and beat the Wisconsins of, like, Minnesota shouldn't be a big win.
That's why Stanford, and that's why they hired Angelo. See what Angelo Luck, he got a donor to give $50 million.
Saw it.
So
look, people are like, "Hey,
I mean, if Stanford decides they want to win, if they win, they got 50 guys they can get $50 million from."
Dave, this is why
it's only a matter of time before Andrew Luck starts getting that money from all those guys.
Everybody, the buyout for James Franklin, the money. How are you going to pay the assistants, right? Because on Urban Meyer's podcast, like he talked about, like, look, it might be 40 million or 50 million for Franklin, but you got to buy out all the other guys too, right? Because it's Penn State. They're high-level assistants. Like, they're probably in the millions too. Like, now you got to buy that. This is going to be more like 75 million. And it was like, well, where's the money coming from? And guys are like, well, I don't know. Dude, that's 3 people that graduated from Penn State to be like, hey, here's a check, here's a check, here's a check, go. Like, let's go get our guy. It's going to be fun.
I don't think the Indiana guy's leaving.
He ain't going anywhere.
Why?
He's too old, no offense.
You're already at the top. He's already pulled him to the top. Now he can probably figure out how he can build more.
How much more can I squeeze out of this? And look, it was funny because we talked about with Coach before you hopped on. We talked about Jalen Bell, right? Because Coach Bell, Marion Bell, like, obviously he played at Grayson. He's like, dude, that's he. I was like, look, that's the ultimate, like, literally goes into talking about what we talked about. This guy was a high-level high school football coach, very successful in New Jersey, and put his own career stuff on the side for his son to go down to Georgia. You see him, like, his son's set. He's at Indiana, right? Makes the right choice going there. And now he's back in it as a high school coach down in Georgia. Like, he probably went down there or saw it or did his research and was like, hey, I'll just take a pause for 2 years, kind of revamp whatever, and then I'll take over a high school. And he was saying he just had, like, obviously I saw it in social media, but he just had a huge win over a school like that. The high school he's at now, I think it's Marion, it's called, hadn't beaten this school in like years. And now all of a sudden, like, they're winning. Like, it's just different, dude. It's just to have that whole, like, what, like, down the road viewpoint, trust the process and all that, like, for Greg, that's got to be so hard at Rutgers, man, to know, like, no matter what you do, it's just not, you're never going to beat some of those teams, man. You might get them 1 year here, but, like, come on, man. Like, Dave, uphill with, like, everything working against you. Wind in your face, right? Like, icy road, right? One flat tire. Like, and then even if you do get a good kid, he's going to probably leave.
But could leave, right, depending on the situation, right? You're right. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Enough money gets thrown at KJ Duff, you're going to stay. Now, what I do think for Greg is he has a really good track record of putting guys in NFL who are successful, right?
And all the big schools do now. That's the thing. All the big schools do. There was a time where that wasn't the case. Now they all do. All of the Big Ten, SEC, even the ACC, even the Big 12, those 4, they all have guys that have very good
one of them
relationships in the NFL. Now, obviously, Shiano's very well respected, but all these coaches, because they're all paid so much money, they all have those level of connections. They're all paid. They're working out any of those guys who don't. They're all getting worked out of the system. They're all getting worked out. So all the guys that are going to be in charge of these programs are going to have direct lines to the NFL. And the NFL is going to want to have direct lines with them because
and look, we also saw Greg kind of have more of a direct line literally to Bill Belichick. Patriots, right? Like that was the hey, Bill loved taking Rutgers guys, right? Like a lot of dudes, right? So it's like
in the transfer portal era,
that shit don't matter.
Very few guys do you have that 4-year relationship with that you can.
None.
Very, very few. Like very, very, very few. So it's I don't know. It's interesting. It's no, like I say it like there's no right or wrong on this. It's just it's the world you're in, and it's
it is what it is.
And when I say that I have a longing for it, I just know my experience was good because of these factors, right? Like at sports, your experience was good because of some of the ways that it was. A lot of people's experiences probably are good, but everybody plays
and
sports.
I forget that a lot, Dave. I forget that a lot, right? Like we had really good, not just on the field, we had good experiences for the most part, right? When it came to everything, like I'm sure we would hit bumpy patches here or there, right? Look,
I'm sure we did. But I would say you come away with
in comparison to the general high school athlete, like
good experience.
We're in a different, I think, slot, a different space, right? Like majority of the guys we talked to probably didn't have that good of an experience,
that's probably
right?
True.
Or they weren't fortunate enough to play for coaches that understood the game or cared. Think about some of the assistant coaches that we've worked with or you've had on staff where you're like, holy shit, like I can't believe I let this guy coach 3 games with kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that might be those kids' only experience with a guy like that. Right. Or administration, or look, I look at some of my guys in my previous school, Dave, 3 head coaches in 3 years. How do you explain your high school career like in that?
In New Jersey, the issue, and maybe a lot of places across the country, but it's not as bigger schools in Georgia or bigger schools in Texas, like they have more resources. In New Jersey, the difficult part is like public school in general, putting together staffs is a nightmare in football, at least.
Dude, especially because of like now it might be easier in Georgia, right? Or easier in Texas, right?
Well,
because
there's them more. You're finding positions for them in the school.
And with the way the structure is time-wise, like you find somebody who's not a teacher that has from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day open to go and do something for free
or a little,
and all the hoops you have to jump through and the shit you deal with to be a coach, right? Because I think a lot of people don't get that, but
public schools, I don't know how you do it in New Jersey, but
you know how I'm able to do it? Because I work for you.
No, I don't mean you, but I mean like
think about it. I'm saying to continue to coach for the most part.
Going forward, how do
you change it?
Unless New Jersey starts to either A, go back to the old model where they make sure that coaches have teaching jobs, or B,
taken care of. Yep.
Or B, go to a modern model where you have a head coach. I'm saying, or a modern model where the head coach in football, for example, is paid full time and maybe just teaches one class, or until you go to that model.
Those days make the head coach an administrator. Those days are gone.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to make those.
And again,
hard.
Guys were taken care of in the past, dude. Like, oh, he's a coach. I'll get him a teaching job. They flipped it. Right? Like,
and the places that have it have worked really well. Like Old Japan has that.
Old Japan.
They have a few guys that are assistants that are in the school, but they have a good amount of the staff.
But the pillars of the program are
3 or 4 main guys that are teachers are also on the staff.
And because of the money thing, you're forcing really good coaches to leave coaching because they go into administration, and a lot of districts don't allow you to do both.
I think the bigger schools, public schools should pay a full-time head football coach. Now listen, you could say, okay, it's a teacher salary, 100, whatever it is, 70, 80K.
It's fine. Just put them at the top of the guide. That's all you got to do. Put them at the top of the guide.
Duties. Yeah. You give them a couple of duties in the school. So they're not, but
it's the teacher only that always like shun the coach, because look, some guys don't do it right, and they've given you a bad reputation as a teacher coach because they show up for their duty, or they do this other thing. Like, dude, that shit sucks, bro.
Why have the big school coaches, Group 4 and Group 5? Why have them public school? Why have them teaching a lot of classes? I just don't. I think
you're taking away from something else.
You could have them as an associate AD, okay? Associate AD.
You get the best of both worlds, dude.
And the head football coach, so they can help the AD with the things he needs to get done.
Make him the assistant AD, dude.
Salary. Right.
Correct.
They're an assistant AD. So they're helping all the other sports, but they still have the time to do the things that they need to do within the school system. Instead of
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, instead of
or they go the other way and they load the coach and they make him do so much extra shit to compensate for that, on top of having to do all of his coaching thing. Like, you know what I mean? Now, look, I was fortunate. Like, when I was at,
position is really the way to go, because like everyone's like,
because now you have, and you also now room within it. Like, you can make him do, you can have him do certain different things and here and whatnot. It's just, listen, the best districts and the most success that where in the places that I've had that type of model where they took care of the coaches, right? Like, all right, you're going to be the football guy, but guess what? You're also going to do wrestling, and you're going to do track, and I'm going to you're going to have these classes, and hey, I need you to do that. Like, that's okay. That's fine. Like, you know what I mean? They made it up in the back end or something. When they said you were a coach, right? You were looked at as a commodity. Like, thank you, right? Like, you're doing more than just coming here 7 to 3 and teaching, right? Like, and people respected that. And now it's, you're a coach. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it's something that's crazy. Not looked at. Like, great, another coach. Like, now he's just going to sit there and drink his coffee, and he ain't going to do what he's supposed to. And I'm going to have to cover his class when, he's early for a game or blah blah blah. Like, dude, what the fuck? Like, I'm doing more to help the students than you could possibly think of, than you are sitting in a classroom like handing out Chromebooks saying do this. Give me a break.
Yep, no doubt.
That's why I work for you, buddy. It's why I work for you. Shit, dude, think about how many gray hairs I'd have if I did another, like, if I was still teaching and doing all the special ed stuff I was doing. Gosh.
It's a wild world.
I can't believe you played last night, brother. I can't believe you played that.
Yeah. Listen, it
was playoffs now, right? Like, playoffs now.
You're go, right? I didn't mind playing last night. I didn't mind it at all. Like,
I'd love to play a weeknight game, dude. Make us the MAC conference. I'll play every Thursday night.
I'm like, so I said, all right, so Tuesday
MAC Nation, let's go, MAC.
That's what I said, let's go MAC game, Tuesday night MAC game. I don't know if everybody understood what I was talking about. Ida Wabo did.
Dude, maybe, yeah, you might have had one dude that understood that whole reference, and it was like, huh?
Tuesday night MAC game, let's go.
Let's rock it. I mean, look, but like, you want to play, I don't know. Like, I get it. There's something to like, only one game a week on a Friday night. And look, this is the first time in a really long time I haven't played a Saturday game in a regular season, dude. It was all Friday nights, like the entire season. Same with my head coach. He's like, dude, this is the first time I've ever done this where I haven't had a Saturday game. But look, there's something to be said for one game a week, but I love switching it up. Like, it adds extra juice. I don't care if it's a short week, right? Like, the kids get excited. It's something different, because football at this point in the season becomes so routine and monogamous, and it's the same thing over and over and over.
Week are you guys on 7 or 8?
We are game. This is what are we 3 4? This is game 8. I think it's week 7. So we have 2 more. Remember, the state only has, this is the last week that counts towards playoffs because that last week doesn't count.
Cool. All right. Well, good luck. We have nothing tomorrow, right?
No, nothing tomorrow. Next week we have some guys already lined up. Good to go. I mean, dude, we're booked out. Like, it's kind of cool. Like, we are like now, like, there are guests that are booked like weeks in advance. Like, I mean, some of the times are going to change a little bit with some of these guys in season and whatnot. Where, you know, kind of, it's awesome that we've got the wiggle room, or you've given the green light to wiggle around with some of the times and whatnot to get some of these guys in season. But I'm excited to talk to some of these guys coming up from some of the big. I mean, we got the OC from Bixby coming on in a couple weeks. I'm excited about that. We got an equipment manager from the New England Patriots coming on. Like, you know, I'm a geek for that kind of stuff. Before we go, I will say it's pretty cool how much data Grayson, a high-level program, is using. Holy shit, man. Like,
holy shit.
Look, if the top-level programs are doing this, and I get it, and he referenced it, Coach, we have a lot of coaches we have the ability to do these things and to look at these, whatever. But, dude, I mean, come on, man. How many schools have a director of sports science, bro, as a title? Like,
it's unbelievable.
What are we fucking talking about, dude? And to hear him talk about, yeah, well, this 19 miles per hour, and look, here's the weight divided by inches for what we get, and now we can
with these kids recruiting wise when they have all this stuff.
When the soon-to-be 5-star is only running down on kickoff as because, hey, we did his numbers and he's going to be 6'5". I think it's fucking awesome, dude. I think that shit's so cool, dude. That's because I'm a geek for the numbers, man. Right? Like, that stuff to me is so cool. Like, why wouldn't you use that you have access to, man? Like, that's fucking awesome.
Incredible, dude. Absolutely.
I mean, shit. I have guys that are just in awe of us using go routes. Like,
I live in the wrong place for all this stuff. There's no doubt, because we are not.
People look at us like we have 27 heads when I bring up some of the stuff, and I'm like, hey, I just want you guys to know, like, this program here, right, which is another bonus and why I love doing this podcast, networking and all that other kind of stuff, to hear what other guys are doing, you know. Hey, you know, this guy takes in-home visits to guys on his roster, so he's better equipped to handle them coaching-wise. Hey, this guy tracks the steps that these guys take every practice. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's funny. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but like when I send you the video and like I'm not kidding. It was like a 6U, right? When I send you a 6U tackle game, and all the whole town comes out for it.
Dude, the line cover. I mean, there had to be how many thousands of people
when you
there?
think I'm crazy, like if my wife tells me I'm crazy for being upset about something, and I'm not saying you're wrong, not wrong. I'm just saying that, like,
this is what it is elsewhere, buddy.
When you're in the South, when you're in even the West, okay, the Midwest, Texas, like in the old days we were competing for Rutgers, Penn State, UConn, UMass to recruit us, those schools, like in the FCS. No, those guys are not recruiting us in this state anymore.
Not even looking at it, dude.
They're recruiting
not even
those kids, because those kids have been doing this stuff and measuring this stuff forever. Like when I first watched, and this is a tribute to Gabe Kemp, okay? When I first watched him doing his videos at 10 and 11 or whatever, and I used to think, oh, you know, is this going to translate down the line when he gets? Let me tell you something. He trained like he was in the South, and it has translated. It doesn't mean that he's going to be
There's a reason that's where the most people – there's a
that
reason that's where the most collegiate athletes come from, buddy, or why that's the best conference. Like, how about we look at the direct correlation of the high school setups, right? From even your average programs in the state.
Movement. It's not necessarily like, are you catching 100 balls? Okay, you should.
No, it's hey, first class of the day is football.
It's athletic movement stuff over and over again. General athletic movements.
Their gym classes their physical education classes aren't just rolling out balls and saying, hey, you don't have to change. No, dude, they're time in miles, right? Like, there's still a physical fitness challenge, like for some of these states, dude. Here we are.
And you're doing it outside.
If you don't want it, that's the other part. They're pushing it. Like, I'm going to make sacrifices here because this builds better people physically and mentally rather than just plopping them down in a class.
Okay,
let's make sure everybody feels comfortable.
Out part. I think that's the thing that
that's something if you don't put that into a kid's head early. Think about it, Dave. If you don't put that, you have to do physical activity in order to stay healthy and be okay physically and mentally. If you don't put that in a young kid's head and they go 12 years of school and that's not a thing, now in real life, like, what did I do that?
You have working out, changing direction, jumping,
jumping,
some form
dude.
of lifting, some form, like it doesn't have to be.
Look,
all of those things that combined make a huge impact,
dude. They literally come to phys ed class. All right, we're going to the track and we're walking 4 laps. Okay. Oh, we get back in here. All right, time to go. Oh, hey, you can go do this, or this. Like, that's it. Like, there's no push, drive. There's nothing.
The whole thing in New Jersey is to make them
everybody's got to feel okay.
Healthy.
Everybody's got to feel a part of something. We don't want to single anybody out.
Intense exercise is what increases longevity much more than just going out or walking laps. It's intense exercise for short spurts of time for 20, 30 minutes or whatever. That helps your overall health a lot more because it's changing the state of your body. It's forcing you to pump more blood. So those kind of things.
Dude, there's a biocorrelation to it. When you work out, you feel better.
Like walking is
we're not talking the physical aspect of it, just mentally in your head. Like, I just got to sweat. I just got, like, what the?
Well, no one wants to sweat in gym class anymore. That's become because
they don't change. It's not like they put on different clothes. And what do you mean? Shower? I have to shower in front of somebody?
No one changes anymore.
Not even a thing. It used to be, hey, this is how we grade you. If you change, you get an A.
Correct.
If you don't, it is. Now it doesn't fucking matter. Remember, hey, if you don't have rubber soles, dude, you can't participate in gym. That's a 0. That ain't a thing. Kids are working out, whatever.
Obviously,
I had a kid come to practice the other day in Carhartt pants. He was wearing Carhartt work pants for practice in a helmet and a jersey. I'm like, what are you doing? I just came from work. What's the dude? Shorts, buddy. Shorts. Like, I don't. It's all good.
It's all good.
I love it. I love coaching, buddy. I love it.
We'll see you later. Have a great day.
See you, buddy.